See, remember when talking off camera how I don't remember things if it doesn't save my life?
Yeah.
These are one of.
Oh, you know what? Time out. Well, let's start this episode again. Let's start this episode. Start off on the wrong foot here. Timestamp.
Timestamp.
Okay. I was like, wait, what am I listening to?
Okay.
Sorry, man.
No, you're good.
I was like, literally, what have I been listening to? All right, everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the 990 podcast, aka Coffee and Beers with Friends. I'm Jay.
I'm Ray.
Hey, right now we are enjoying a Rogue Dead Guy Ale.
Yes.
Yeah, first time drinking this. Not bad.
It's good. I like it. There's a purple one. It's the pale ale. I tried the IPA one, which is the green. I guess they're color based.
Okay.
But the purple one's super good. And I stopped by Foodland J and I seen this brand. I was like, oh shoot, they didn't have the purple one, but
Yep.
I was like, maybe this is as good. But I like it. To be honest, it's hard for me to tell what's good or not with beer.
Yeah, I know you shared that you recently, pretty recently, a beer drinker, right?
It's not in my go-tos.
Gotcha.
Yeah, normally I'll have it with friends only.
Okay.
And I think one of the times we hung out, we just talked about how beer is. It depends what you're going for.
Yep.
If you're trying to go from 0 to 60,
Yep.
what you're saying, then you have certain ones that you want to try out.
For sure.
Yeah, but this Rogue Pale Ale. Oh, I'm sorry, Rogue Dead Guy Ale. Yeah, it's pretty good. I was looking at the percentage, and we talked about this off camera. And if you looked at the percentage of the alcohol, I normally don't.
Yeah. It'll catch up to you. It'll get you. Get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, what you been listening to lately?
Listening to the one that's been on repeat that I can think of, Tennessee Queen. I think that's the name.
Okay. By who?
By so I don't know the
I'm
artist
guessing
name.
this is country western.
Country. Yep. And I found this from a guy that Tennessee Queen. I found this from one of the podcasts that I listened to. And they were talking about like songs that they've been listening to.
Right.
Tennessee Queen. So I checked it out and I was like, man, after I heard it, it's just been on repeat for a good while.
Dope.
But then again, I am the type to listen to, his name is Ernest.
Okay.
Ernest. Country singer. But yeah, after listening to the song, it's been on repeat for a good while. And I was saying that I'm the type that if I really like something, it's gonna be on repeat for a good while.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I know that might drive some people crazy.
Your wife.
Yeah. Well, that's why I don't listen to it when she's in the car. But going on my way to work, yeah, you can tell my, you know how they have your at the end of the year stats.
Yep.
You can tell which songs are like. There's just a wide margin of the songs I like versus songs that I just listen to.
I feel like everybody has their country western moment because for whatever reason, growing up, not exposed to it, not cool, right? That genre is just the one thing like, oh, I listen to everything except country music. And then
So
for whatever reason, at some point, everybody's like, oh yeah, so I heard this and I listen to it now. And
Yep.
I don't know, when was your country western moment?
Maybe a couple. I don't know because yeah, that's so true too.
Yeah, no, it is.
Because it's funny. Like I can go from jazz to hardcore and to like metal to pop punk, and then go to like ballads. Yeah, bro. But country was never really in. Not that I didn't like it. It just never popped up. I don't know why.
You know what's super interesting though is if you think about just the basis of local music, like contemporary Hawaiian music, basically the same format as country western, right? They do a lot of covers.
Yep.
A lot of covers. You put a reggae bass line on it, and that's local music. So I think we've always been exposed to it, and we just didn't realize like, hey, this is a very similar genre, local music. But for me, I remember being in college. My roommate freshman year was from the Midwest. He was from St. Louis. All he listened to, and it drove me insane. And then when we didn't live together, I remember starting to hear this more and more. And yeah, I started kind of appreciating it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then now, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a full blown country western fan, but
Yeah,
I
heck yeah.
definitely I'll let it play. I'll let it rock.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
good music's good music, right?
Good music, good. That's what I'm realizing. There's something. There is something in everything that makes it good.
Yep.
I don't know what it is, but I think music wise, I think it's the pattern of the chords.
Sure.
Not so much the tone of it.
Okay.
Because I can listen to August Burns Red, who's like a metal band, and then find the chords in there or the patterns.
Yep.
And what do you call appreciate it. At the same time, I can find some jazz thing, and I see the pattern. Not all jazz is kind of nuts musically, but I can appreciate that as well, like the patterns and the way that it plays out.
Right.
But yeah, there's something good in each genre. I just can't pinpoint.
Sure.
I would suspect it's the patterns.
I would assume so. You're a musician yourself, so I think that definitely plays into it.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was tone and pitch. I think I just didn't get the accent that a lot of times Western has.
You're right,
So,
right.
not necessarily lyrics. I think it was just the delivery that I had to get used to. And then after a while, you kind of just hear the slack key guitar, all of that
Yeah.
stuff that plays into it. And it can be appealing. I can see where people might not, if it's not something familiar to them, they might not like it. But it's like anything, right? Like any accent, like,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where I started listening. I'm like, this is actually nice. It's a nice form of music.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah. Like we talk about like just romance and romantic R&B and whatnot, and you listen to the lyrics, you're like, this guy's dirty.
Yeah. That's true.
Country music's like the only true pure romantic song left genre wise. So.
That's true, and it's definitely up there with storytelling.
Yes.
Because they're very event based.
It's so simple, right?
Yeah.
Like just what they're singing about it's pretty simplified, but it's I guess relatable in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in the emo scene.
Okay, for sure.
So I mean, side note, that's why Jimmy Butler.
Hey man.
Jimmy Butler
What's some of the funniest ones that you saw? I saw Backboard Confessionals. Yeah, that was good.
Well, the only one is that one's one, and was it Jimmy Heat World?
Jimmy Heat World.
There's
That was
another
good.
one. But just I thought it was fake, like someone is doing like some post or whatever, and then I realized, oh shoot, Jimmy's for real.
Well, he said that for him, press day is his Halloween. I think last year he showed up with like some huge dreadlocks, like Kodak Black
did.
style dreadlocks.
Yeah.
And then this year was emo, and you gotta love it, man. Like honestly, like whoever's giving him flag just doesn't have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I think it's whether it's fake or not. I mean, if it's real, I think it's even cooler. To be honest with you, if he got his lip and eyebrow pierced, I think that's dope.
Yeah,
and I think it's really cool if he plays like that.
Yeah.
But if it was just for that one day, I think it's hilarious, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's cool that he's not out there trying to look cool. If that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And he's just having a good time.
Yeah, it's so good because Jimmy used to play for the Bulls, which is my team if I do have one,
Yep.
Chicago Bulls. And
Okay.
when I seen him, well, first when he got traded to what was it, Wolves, I was so upset because he was one of my favorite players on the Bulls. But now, I mean, Jimmy's just funny. He looks like a fun guy.
He
I
seems
follow his
like
IG.
a cool guy.
Yeah.
He's a huge country music
He is,
country
yeah.
music fan.
Yeah.
He's a big Miley Cyrus fan.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, huge Miley Cyrus fan. Yeah, just everything about him just kind of just doesn't scream status quo, and I think that's why I think he's fun to watch. Personality wise, you have a lot of cookie cutter players in the sense that everybody's just trying to be cooler off the court than they are on the court.
Sure.
But for him, he kind of just allows himself to be who he is, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Kind of a throwback to back in the day, like the Dennis Rodman era.
Yeah,
Right.
I was thinking that was my first thought. I was like, oh man, he's pulling a Dennis Rodman
Yep,
where
yep.
got these theatrics. But I grew up in the emo scene,
Okay.
and so a lot of the times, or a lot of music, what I was listening to, would never stray away from that.
Okay.
So country music was just never
Yeah.
up there. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
for sure.
And then there's the aspect of distribution where now you can listen to anything you really want
Yeah.
with Spotify or Apple Music or whatever it is. And so I think that's probably the reason why I didn't really listen to country
For sure.
or anything else. I did listen to jazz because I was in band and music. Yeah, it's just weird. I never really, no one really prompted me. And like you said, it was 100% true that country music wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah.
it was. I think the older you get, you just realize cool is speculative. You know what I mean? Like it's just, like, yeah.
Did you mention your the one you listened to?
So what I listened to this morning, Drake had a freestyle that came out, I want to say 8 a.m. in Charlotte, which is cool. I mean, the clip, he put it on Instagram, throwing some subs in there, like how he does. He looks crazy in the video.
Crazy as in
The man is just really just doing him now. He's got his hair flattened and got a bunch of hairpins in it. Yeah, gotta like it. But yeah, so it's good. I listened to that this morning. Last thing, I had to go back and check my queue here, but recently rediscovered 30 Seconds to Mars, which is hilarious. We're talking about emo, right? So
yeah.
I went down this rabbit hole on YouTube the other day, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the channel Drumeo before.
No.
Yeah, kind of cool. It's this cool channel, and then what they do is they have various drummers, and they'll basically play a track that they've never heard before. And what they'll do is they'll take the drum out of the track, and then just based off of the song structure, they come up with their own drum pattern for the song. So
okay.
so Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Yeah.
he supposedly hadn't never heard Bury Me from 30 Seconds to Mars. So what was crazy was he just picked up on the pattern of the song structure and was able to insert drums, and it mimicked the actual drum pattern identical.
That's insane.
And he just picked it off with one take. He did one pass on it and just did it like
That's
flawlessly.
insane.
But after I heard that, I was like, oh crap, I forgot. Like, love these guys.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
On a musical standpoint, there are strum patterns that will give you hints of how the drum should sound.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's probably how Chad Smith picked it up.
Yeah, he was able to pick it up pretty quick. He's like, oh, this is a 3 count, and it's insane when people have that ear for that. They just use active listening, and they're able to kind of insert where they believe. So you should check that out. Drumeo is really cool.
I definitely will.
But yeah, no, I mean, just kind of listening to that, I was talking to Tristan about it, and I was like, hey, Jared Leto might be one of those guys. You talk about Justin Timberlake, just being able to do everything. The guy's an Oscar winner, and he's also he can sing, man. He got chords on him for sure.
He does, yeah.
I haven't really heard too much of their new stuff, but I remember early 2000s, like 30
they were
Seconds to
bigger.
Mars, huge.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Every once in a while, I'll throw on my Hot Topic playlist, and I forgot how much.
Is that what it says? Hot
yeah,
Topic?
literally, it's just Hot
Let's
Topic,
go.
and I got all of that in there. I got AFI in there, 30 Seconds to Mars, all the classics. But it's fun, man. I remember. So just kind of going back to it, for me, growing up in the 80s and into the 90s, I think my first love was always hip hop and rap. Specifically, and don't ask me why, I really just got into gangster rap really early on. So real hardcore West Coast stuff.
West Coast.
Yep. And I think that just kind of stayed with me. So if you kind of look at like what I still listen to, I listen to a lot of 90s West Coast rap. But then I kind of just, for whatever reason, started kind of going into just more of the pop punk stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Not recently. I mean, that was just a whole thing, I think, in the early 2000s.
For sure.
And it's just fun music. That's all it is, you
It
go back,
is.
you listen to Linkin Park, you listen to all that stuff. It's just really fun music. And, I know you can kind of label it as screamo and whatnot, but, it's good stuff.
These days, in the past few years, I'll listen to some of it again, but I'm like, man, I can't enjoy it as much as I used to. There's a different feeling, and I think it's because it's attached to a time where you just have a good point in time in your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so I think right now the reason why I can appreciate it maybe more so now is back then it's attached to angst, and it's almost just like this manufactured angst, right? So I say it's Hot Topic because it's literally pop punk, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you got the whole look and the whole scene, and
Yep.
I'm not discrediting anybody still in that or that was super into it by any means,
Yep.
but you know, I just feel like it was a time that it was just kind of this whole mood. And then now you can kind of just be like, oh, that was fun, and then just kind of go back on it. You're like, wow, why?
The one-liner.
Yeah, you're like, why was I so emotional about that? Like, get over it.
Oh man, let's see how emo. I think the emoist I've been.
Yep.
Gio. This is back
had bangs,
before.
right?
I had bangs.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course you did.
I did the straightening.
Yeah.
yeah. I did the relaxing.
Oh shit.
Bro, I was in it.
Yes.
I was so in it. I used girl pants before skinny jeans were a thing.
All right.
That's
There you
how
go.
legit it was for
There
me.
you go.
And I remember because shortly after these brands started coming out with skinny jeans, I'm like, yeah, we're picking those up instead of these girl jeans.
Yep. There you go.
But yeah, man, the emo scene was awesome. Just very. I don't know, very sad.
Very sad. You know what's funny now though is, I think that most people that kind of grew up in that genre, it's funny to just kind of look at like if you ever look at old photos of yourself.
Bro, yo, we're posting. Yeah, we're posting up. You gotta post. You gotta give me one too. So we'll post it
man.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So good stuff. But
Yeah.
I would love to see relaxed hair Ray. That'd be great.
I always blame myself for doing that. So me and my friend Jay, his name is Jay, one of my best friends. He would relax his hair too with me.
Okay.
So we do it. But we kind of punch ourselves in the face because now I feel like it's coming to haunt us back because my hair's not as full anymore. It's not as, healthy as it should be.
Sure.
It's kind of falling off. Not literally, but like,
Yep.
But yeah, if I could, if I could take back one thing, it would be relaxing hair back in the day.
I don't know. You ever think about like things that you did before that you're like, oh, I wonder if I could still run that now that I'm 10, 20 years
20 years
older.
in.
I've thought about bleaching my hair again. I don't know why.
for real?
I don't think it'd be a good look at all, but I'm just like, why not? Like what?
We haven't seen you in longer hair in a while.
Yeah,
and it's
man.
not even long, just like
Oh no, yeah. I at one point I had my hair really long. And I think I just don't have that much hair anymore.
oh yeah.
I think it's just, the older you get, you start thinning out. But also like I was early on the man bun train, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't you were running a bun for a minute?
For a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gets what do you call hard to maintain.
Well, it's funny because you go through the awkward stage of growing it out, right? And you're like,
Right.
oh man,
Yeah,
it'll be
that's-
worth it once I get it long. And then once it's long, you're like, it wasn't worth it.
Well, that was the first time that I let it grow out, and that took about like 8-9 months, bro.
Yeah.
But I was curious. I didn't have it that long before, so
Obviously, I think the most people will do the shaved sides and back and then just grow the top out. You ever just grow all your hair out?
before,
Yeah.
in high school. So
I never had the discipline for that. I wish I did. I wish I
which
did.
is irritation, like
I just didn't like the look of when you let it go past the couple months and then the sides you got the Asian hair and sticks straight out on the side.
Yeah.
I could never get past that. I always had to clean up and get the fade. And I
you
think
had that
that's-
type of hair.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
worst, man. So I mean, I think if I had more discipline, I would have tried that out. But I always admire dudes with long hair that just let it run.
Just let it run. Yeah. So I have this this plan. I'm just waiting for my hair to start going to its bad stage. Bad stage meaning
Yeah.
like there's patches of whatever. And my plan is, Jail, is to start wearing hats before it gets super bad,
Okay.
so that when later I have to just shave everything off, people
Yep.
just know me as person with a hat. It's all mind games.
Yeah. For sure,
what-
for sure. Maybe that's why I've been shaving my head lately because I still have hair, but if I just keep it short, then
They're not noticing.
they're just gonna be like, oh yeah, he's had short hair.
Yeah.
But I mean, the funny thing about it is, I think I miss having hair and styling it.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier to just run
It's so
with
much
just a
easier.
short haircut.
I always told my friends, like, or Josh, if I had a nicely shaped head, I would
You'd
shave it all the
shave
time.
it, yep.
Yeah, all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't.
Me either. Me either.
Yeah.
I got this flat patch just in the back, and it looks
Yeah.
insane when it's really really tight. So
Yeah, then my back is flat. So like hats, they don't have something to hold on to in the
Gotcha.
back. Yeah. Yeah. But
guy problems, yeah.
guy problems. Yeah, today we're talking about spouses
Yeah. Hey.
ish.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think what's cool is our spouses know each other, which is
Yeah.
awesome. But yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we had discussed before we started recording was just the ways that we show up for our spouses and the way they show up for us. And I think you and I we're in similar situations in the sense that our marriages are very young, but you also have the added element of having a child now, so that makes things different as well. But yeah, I mean, for me, my wife Tristan is the funnest person I know. I mean, I know that's such a safe and silly thing to say, like, oh, she's the funnest person I know, but she really is. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had more fun with anyone as I do with her. And I think what's awesome is she knows this version of me. I've changed. I've lived so many lives before I met her, and I think this version of myself is, I don't want to say my final form, but as
Sure.
close to it as possible.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it's because I've gone through life experiences. I've found my place in the world when it comes to just the way that I my beliefs, my values. I've got a niche with my work. This is the version of myself that I feel very comfortable with. And this is the version that she knows, and she accepts me for it. And this is by no means is a perfect version of myself. I've got my flaws, and I think what's cool is she knows that about me, and I don't feel like I have to mask anything from her. I think like honesty is an important thing, and with her, I think she really does see me for who I am. And I appreciate that. And what's cool is, I think the coolest thing about my wife is just the fact that she knows that she uses this phrase that life is a circle. Whenever you're on the bottom, you just got to know that at some point you're going to be back on top. And I think the way that we show up for each other is when one person's on the bottom, the other person's on the top, and we'll just always kind of balance each other out that way, right? And it just keeps moving that way, like
That's
a circle.
cool. Yeah.
So that's been a good thing. But I mean, for you, as a new parent, like, how's things been with the married life?
Yeah. It presents new challenges.
Yep.
And you have, and some might see it as challenges, some might see it as opportunities to show up, like
Okay.
how we're talking about. Yeah, it's the concept of that circle, like what you were talking about, Jay, is so good, because I think what I've realized and what I've learned is that once you are married to someone, your spouse, the way that I view it is that we are a unit, like a one unit now. And if one part of the unit goes down, then you need to make up for that without any expectations.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what makes it work for us, is not having the expectations.
Okay.
And this goes along with everything that we do. So let's say if we see that there are dishes to be done,
Okay.
these are might seem small things, but in the aspect of how it runs the machine or how our unit runs, it's such a huge thing, right?
Oh, 100%.
And so if I see it, it's been sitting there for maybe a day or two, but I know that if I know that Joss is working like on those 2 days, I know I should do it.
Yep.
But she doesn't expect it, but we know it's there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so as not an individual, but as a team, we both know that it needs to be done.
Yeah.
But who does it? It will hinge on just our schedules.
Okay.
So there's no expectation of you're supposed to do this.
Yeah.
But in a sense, it's the way that I show up is is knowing that it's supposed to be done, without having her. Yeah, it's weird. It's like we don't have to tell each other. We just know it needs to be done.
Okay.
And that's how we show up for each other in terms of like house things.
Yep.
There's so many opportunities like with Zozo now, with like waking up. So another way that I see myself showing up, I don't know, it's I don't want to say playing my part, because in my head I see us as one unit.
Right.
But the way that I can continue to make the unit work is if I know Joss is working, it's just a lot of consideration based things.
There you go.
So if she's working the next day and Zozo wakes up in the night, there's no rule saying like from Monday to Tuesday I'll wake up and take care of her. On Wednesday to Friday you're the one. There's no like set thing. It's just kind of as we go.
Got it.
And knowing the energy levels, and it's all based off consideration.
Okay.
And so I think that's how the way that I show up. So there are times where she'll have a hard time, and I have hard time as well, but she'll have a hard time with a particular thing. And the one thing that I found to be very helpful, Jill, is just listening. Like literally just listening.
Sure.
Not providing any answers, not providing any not conclusions, solutions. It's just literally just being there.
Yeah.
And I think that might be hard for some people, and it was hard for me at the beginning, because as the partner, you want to be like in a selfish way, you want to be the one to provide the answers, or to be the answer. But as I found over the years of our relationship, that's not the case. It's just being there, literally listening to her. Yeah. And like and I've heard this multiple times from other people. It's like, you don't have to be, I don't have to be right. I just want to be heard.
There you go. Yeah.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Which has been true. But yeah, that's kind of one of the ways that I find super helpful. We can get into heated arguments.
Yep.
What's the way that you guys resolve that?
I think for us, what's good is, again, recognizing that, we are thinking as a unit. I think that's the number one thing, right? So, again, everybody has those selfish moments where it's like, I want this and I need this. But also when you think about it from what's going to push us forward, what's going to advance us, as a household, as a unit, as a family, I think if you kind of lead with that, then you'll be able to kind of use that filter and have a better, more open perspective on things. So I think, it's funny, like you were just talking about, just being listening. One thing Tristan does, she doesn't always listen, but one thing that she does really well is when we're in an argument, she'll stop me in my tracks and be like, how is this productive?
Wow.
And, I know that might sound harsh, but that's what I need. Because I think she's naturally more solution-based than I am. Okay. So me, I'm a very emotional person. So I want to get out my emotions, and she'll let me do that. But after a certain point, it becomes like unproductive, because then I'm just airing out grievances, and I'm not finding out like how we move forward from this and how we make things better, or even what she can do or how we can compromise. And I think by her stopping me and just telling me like, how is this productive, or like, let's talk about solutions, and just really kind of just taking the emotions out of it, allow yourself to be emotional, and get that part out, but just kind of getting to the point where you're like, well, let's be rational about this.
Right.
What's the problem and how are we going to fix it? And we've kind of approached that. She taught me that. So she's done that to me multiple times. And there have been a few times recently where I've had to kind of stop her and been like, okay, well, what do you want to do about this?
Yeah.
And then from there, then all of a sudden you're back on the same side instead of being on opposing sides, right?
Yeah.
When
right?
when you're
That's
in an
good.
argument, right? You're on opposing sides. And then once you get to the point of like, how are we going to fix this? Then now you're on the same side. Okay, well, this is what we got to do.
100%. That's
and I
good.
think that's kind of been an eye opener for me. That's something she taught me. And that's something that I think is valuable, that I might not have had, in just previous relationships and, my younger years, where I think I might not have been objective to things. I just really, really went into things emotional and wasn't able to see past that.
Yeah. That's always a tough one though, because when we're in an argument, emotions get
Yeah.
get pretty heated, the
Yep.
voice starts to raise.
Sure.
But yeah, and I think one of the things that I learned growing up was my dad always told me to be pragmatic. I didn't realize until later on in life
Sure.
what that meant, or how to exude, or how to play that out in real life.
Yep.
But the older I got, the more less emotional I got, which was kind of I wouldn't say sad, but I think I look back in the emo days,
Okay.
and I'm like, oh shoot, like what? You're a little too emotional. So I think that's why I had that hard flip,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, that wasn't that wasn't productive at all.
Sure.
It's like you're writing these things, writing these songs and whatnot, but how are you becoming better? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's those words from my dad was really helpful, because now, like what you're saying, it's like, okay, how is this productive, or how can we together? And I think that's a key thing. It's
Yep.
knowing we're on the same team,
Yeah.
because it's super easy to get pulled away from the fact that you guys are one team,
Yep.
or you guys are one unit.
Yep.
I think that idea of always knowing you guys are one team, and you guys are me and Joss and I sometimes like go back to the way of explaining things where it's like you are just, or talking about other people.
Right.
I gotta remind myself to talk about like my,
Sure.
but the way that Joss and I work is I have to always remind myself that that we're always one team, and that we're trying to fix this
Yeah.
thing together.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, that's just not always been, but that's been like a key thing for us. The bear has the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yo,
You got it.
I wanted to implement that,
Hey.
but thank goodness we haven't. We don't really argue too much.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, because, and that's one of the qualities I love about Josh, is because we're to the point where we don't have to raise our voices, or even we just know like that's not ideal, or that's not worth getting into.
For sure.
But I do have this in mind.
Yeah.
If things ever escalate,
Yeah.
I think that's a good pullback. Like, hey, let's get back on track.
Definitely.
Have like a physical sign.
Yeah,
I thought that was
yeah.
super cool when I seen the bear.
It's that show, man.
Bro,
we can
and that
do,
was
we can
from
do a
Ja-
separate podcast.
We're doing a separate podcast
On the bear, yeah.
On the bear. If you're not familiar with the bear is a show about the restaurant business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Joe put me onto that, and that's probably my favorite TV show.
Absolutely.
I haven't
Phenomenal.
watched too much TV shows though,
Yeah.
but that's definitely one of them.
Awesome, man. You know, I think for Tristan and I, it's funny, if anybody really knows us and spends a lot of time with us, they'll probably say like, you guys bicker a lot, and what they don't realize is that's actually part of our relationship. Like we enjoy just giving each other crap. I think that's just like part of it, you know. Like I think part of our fun is just kind of just being just kind of just bagging on each other. Like I think that's something that is just unique to our relationship, where it's kind of this just inside joke that we have,
Yeah.
where we kind of just give each other stuff, and I think it works for us. And I think because we are able to do that, it never boils over to the point where it gets serious.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you can kind of air out your grievances in a joking way.
Right.
And then, you know, and be able to kind of express yourself and deal with it in those little increments versus having a blowout, right?
Yeah.
I think another thing, you know, we've had our share of blowouts. I think, I'll be honest, I don't think we've had a blowout since we got married. So that's
a good
awesome.
sign.
1 year in, right? That's always good. But yeah, you know, before it gets to that point, I think what's really good now is we kind of just hit the timeout and just say like, hey, you know, I don't want this to turn into something. We just kind of had this thing where, I'll be honest, like I just kind of got overwhelmed with some stuff. You know, Tristan is in an industry that is just highly demanding. Really, really busy. It's a busy season for her right now. She's working 7 days a week. I'm not joking. Like, I mean, putting in 12 to 14-hour days, and that's just kind of the expectation of what she's doing. You know, her role. For me, I kind of knew that going into the next couple of months, and just we kind of had a verbal agreement of, hey, you take care of that because this is important, and I'll be able to take care of everything else. And I think going into that, I knew what was expected. and I think I've been doing a really good job with it. And then I think I just the other day just kind of had a moment of like, oh man, what is happening? I shared with it. So my dog ate my couch. I mean, and it seems so trivial, but literally, like, I came home and my dog ate my couch, and this is like I spend more time on my couch than I do on my bed, and I was just freaking pissed off, to be honest with you. Like, I could not believe this had happened.
Wait, which one?
Oh, Penny, yeah,
Penny?
Penny ate my couch. So, but it was just kind of a catalyst, right? Like, it seems so unrelated to whatever issues I was having, but at that point, I just felt like this is too much because I
Yeah.
feel like I'm doing everything right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Tristan doesn't do things, because she does so much. And I think me verbally saying like, this is what I'm going to take care of right now, it kind of took her mind at ease that, hey, I can focus on work. And this was working up until that moment. And I think at that moment I realized like, hey, I am feeling really overwhelmed. And there's not really a good balance right now.
Yeah.
So we had a great talk, and then honestly, I felt like a crybaby. I was just kind of like just telling her over the phone. I just sounded like a broken man, like, oh, the couch is gone. And it's really not that big of a deal, but I think at that moment visually I was just like, what is happening? Like, the house is just, for whatever reason, like, this isn't, there's not a good balance, and this is just kind of like just a visual representation of things are out of whack right now. So we went through our calendar, and we kind of just had to figure out what compromises we need to make with our schedule, so that there would be more crossover with us, that we would have the time to kind of just debrief and kind of just let each other know how we were, kind of just have a checkpoint on everything. And honestly, it was good. I got a good night's sleep. The next morning I slept in, she took care of everything, and I felt good going into the day. And then I got this text message from her, and it was honestly just heartfelt. It just let me know that she recognizes me, understands what I've been doing for her, and really just appreciates everything. And also just that she wanted to show up for me the way that I've been showing up for her. And that's all I needed. I'm a really simple person. I think for me, just having that acknowledgement and that affirmation that, hey, she understands that this is kind of a tough point right now. We're going to get past this. The moment that you need that level of support, I'm there. Then that's all I needed.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a good way for us to approach it. Really just having these moments where before the blow up, before me getting frustrated and accusatory, and all of that stuff, just saying like, hey, you know what, I'm not good with how things are. And just taking that time to pause and just really just hear each other talk about it, and give each other permission to be a little bit emotional, be upset, frustrated, but also recognizing where this is coming from. This isn't directed at her. This isn't directed at like the way things have been going. It's just how you're feeling. Just acknowledging that.
That's crazy, because I think about how a conversation starts, and if I were to start a conversation with the words, "This isn't directed to you, hun."
Yep.
Man, that could save a lot of.
Oh, for sure. Well, you know what it is when you get pissed off about anything, right? You don't want to blame yourself. You want to blame somebody else. Because it's somebody else's fault that made me feel this way, and you can direct that anger at anyone. And unfortunately, it's usually your loved ones, because it's so much easier to just divert your frustration to somebody that will be actively listening to you, right? You're not going to direct it at a stranger that doesn't care.
Right.
You want somebody that's going to care and listen, right?
Do you think in the timeline of all that happening, do you think you mentioning or you having the conversation of, hey, there's a lot on my plate. Do you think starting that earlier would have changed things, or
I think I bit off more than I can chew. I think that me trying to show up for her and say like, hey, I'm going to take care of all these things. It might have been a little bit ambitious. I think if I had really looked at it and been like, well, this is what I got the bandwidth for. I think that might have been a little bit more realistic.
I was going to ask if that's something that you're aware of.
Sure. But I think what's good too is you don't know until you know, right?
Exactly.
I think now I know, like, hey, I got a limit for what I can take care of. Because I mean, also, if I had it my way, I'd stay home. I'd be a stay-at-home dad. Just take care of these girls,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
I'd be the best at it. But the bottom line is, I got a job too. I got to leave the house for hours on end, and I come home, I'm tired, and I still have responsibilities to my wife and to my house that I got to take care of. And I think knowing that, and just finding again a balance where like, hey, you got more going on than I do right now, so
Right,
therefore
right.
I want to take this from you.
Yeah.
But also like I need you to be able to do this. And
Yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of asking permission for that, and just kind of coming to
good.
an understanding. But yeah, man, ever since that talk, like we've been good. And the great thing about it wasn't even an argument. Like we literally just sat down like
That's
this
the best.
and
That's
just
the
talked
best.
about it.
Yeah.
And we resolved it. Like things have been stellar since then, and
Yeah.
I'm real happy about it. What's cool is, she knew that we were gonna be doing some recording and stuff today, and
nice.
this is stuff that for her, she just knows that this is important to me. Like like she's like, hey, I think it's funny. She's like, have fun at therapy. I'm like, I was like, hey, this is therapeutic for me. Like I gotta,
The same.
I
yeah.
gotta just be able to talk this out. I love that I can talk to her about everything, but there's also value in just being able to share this with other people that have a different perspective outside of what you know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's really cool. How are some of the ways that you think Josh shows up for you when you're kind of just on the bottom end of things?
She knows. I okay. It for our unit. It's such a well. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier to someone else, but we're such a. And I'm grateful for this. Our machine runs so well. I call it machine. Our unit runs so well.
Yeah.
We've gotten great at communication. Off the bat though, that was one of the things I loved about her.
Yep.
Before we even dated, it was like how she communicated things, and that's probably one of the top qualities that I love about her. But yeah, we communicate. Communication is such a huge. It's so huge. And that's one of the things that we kind of shine in terms of our how we navigate life.
Right.
That's not to say we have blow ups. I think the last blow up was probably when I told her about my coffee cart idea, bro. So it's good to have a spouse that knows
Yep.
limitations and communicates it without judgment.
Yeah. No,
And,
that's important.
It's important, right? And so, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, I think people don't realize how valuable that is to have a partner that is able to recognize what your dreams and your aspirations are. Like, hey, this person has a vision for something and I don't want to stomp on it.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we are grounded on this.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it perfectly, bro. Yeah. And that conversation was that. And it wasn't even it wasn't a heated argument. It was more of me just being blinded by maybe the fact that maybe this thing was maybe not the right time to do it.
Okay.
And yeah, it was just me being a little bit emotional in the sense where my view or my understanding was that she didn't believe in me. And that's obviously that's not the case.
Right.
And we talked about, and I came to the conclusion that that was a little bit over the top, and I know in my heart she believes in me, and if I really want to do something, I could. But knowing myself, I knew she was right, like
Right.
for her to stop me at that time.
Sure.
And so she has that vision because of the relationship that we have and knowing who I am. And that's why it's super good to know your spouse and who, their tendencies and all that stuff.
Yeah. That's actually interesting because, again, if you have somebody that's the realist, you have to, it's almost like, not that you're testing them, but you're like, I'm going to shoot here and I want to see if you can draw me back and kind of like, and if your spouse knows you, they're like, okay, this is what he's going to say. And this is how I'm going to counter, because I want to make sure that he understands what's involved with this decision. And I think that's important to kind of have, like that push-pull relationship, right?
Yeah. And it's good. And That's yeah. I think that was probably the last time that and it wasn't even an argument.
Yeah.
It blow up. It was just kind of like, just a conversation that needed to be had.
Yeah.
Because there are finances that are involved, and
For
she
sure.
knows my history with finances,
Sure.
and so that's why she has a scope of what do you call? She has that scope, and so she knows how to respond to it.
You know, that's an interesting subtopic when you talk about relationships and finances. I think for me, going into marriage and partnership where we have, you know, joint finances, that's a whole different thing that I think a lot of times people don't discuss before they commit. It's important. You got to have some sense of shared financial responsibility or financial goals. Because if you're on polar opposite ends of that, that is,
it's
you know,
bad.
they always say that finance is the number one reason for divorce, right?
Yeah.
And that's sad, but it's a reality.
Yeah.
You know, like you can love somebody, you know, as much as you can, and at the same time, like if you guys aren't able to sustain whatever life you've built just because of finances, it can be a huge burden.
Huge.
You know, and that again can cause resentment. So I think what's good, Tristan and I think early on, you know, we jumped into the situation where we started sharing finances pretty early on. And I think what was good is we had some growing pains. And I mean, if she was on mic right now, she'd tell you right straight up, like, you know, her spending habits are just different than mine.
Sure.
Point blank, you know, and I think for me, I hate to just be so tit for tat when it comes to things, but I think that when I looked at what our shared financial goals were, owning a home together, you know, like paying off debt, doing all of those things, it felt at the time that we were just working in opposite directions. Like, you know, money was being spent on things that I just didn't prioritize and value, when I thought, like, you know, hey, we gotta talk about what our long-term goals are.
Yeah.
But recently, I just feel like we're just more on the same page. And you know, we didn't get there overnight. It's
For sure.
It's a lot of discussion. It's a lot of arguments. And you know, honestly, I think it was good for us. I think it was good for us early on to kind of go and get into those arguments and differences of just the way we saw things when it comes to money and how we want to spend it, how we want to earn it. But that's important because you got to get to a common ground, no matter what it is, right? Where if this is what we want to do, this is how we're going to do it. And we're not there entirely yet. You know, I think our budget changes every month,
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah.
it's a lot better than what it was. And it's because we are able, she has it in our shared calendar, Sunday finances meeting. And we kind of just talk about
You
like,
guys do it every week.
we try to,
Yeah.
we try to. And usually it's in passing, but it's usually me just saying like, hey, don't spend any money. It's me saying,
meeting adjourned.
it's me saying like, hey, you know, this and this just went through, don't use the checking account, or hey,
Yeah.
you know, like we got to pay this on the credit card. And you know, I think what's good is my financial acumen. Again, like I went through a really bad financial period, and I think I went through a lot of recovery, and I'm able to kind of just see things a little bit more clearer. And it's not that I'm better at it than Tristan is. If anything, Tristan is, for her age, I think she's much more advanced than where I was at her age. But because I do have years over her, I have a little bit more experiences, and I've kind of seen some pitfalls, and I don't want us to go through that again.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not me mansplaining things. It's me just going off of life experiences and just being like, hey, this is the things that I went through. Let's not do that again. Let's not repeat that. And I think she allows me to lead in that sense. There's so many decisions that she executes on that I need her to. But when it comes to finances, that's something that I think she feels like I have a little bit more knowledge on when it comes to certain things. And she just kind of lets me lead on that. And it's kind of a good relationship, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like you and Joss have things where you take the lead and she takes lead in other things?
Yes. I think we both know without saying what things we lead on. When it comes to finances, I think that's one of the biggest indicators of how the marriage is going to be. I mean, off the bat, if you're not willing to share your finances together, that's kind of a red flag, I think, in terms of like getting to marriage and stuff.
You know, I'm not to interrupt, but I am kind of fascinated. And again, you know, I'm not saying that is correct or incorrect.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised how many people do not have shared finances. That's something that I'm always kind of surprised by, and I won't say alarmed because a lot of people make that work.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
kind of interesting because I have noticed that there are a lot of people that don't share finances as a
Yeah.
married couple. Yeah.
So let me clarify when it comes to like joint, not being transparent about it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
No,
yeah. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
want to.
yeah.
Yeah, because we do have
Yeah.
our own separate checkings, and then we have our joined one.
Got you.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't want to confuse anyone.
Yeah.
But like not being able to see what the person
Got it.
spends or
Got it.
whatnot. Josh and I were just talking about this, like the idea of a prenup, and who was it? There was, I don't know, when it comes to celebrities, I feel like a prenup is required almost.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you can get me in trouble. You can get me in trouble. This is actually really, this is interesting. Yeah, Tristan and I, we didn't get a prenup. We didn't. I'll be honest with you, I'm super cheap, and I didn't want to pay for a lawyer. And I think in my head, I thought to myself, we went into this marriage, and our only joint asset is this house. I plan on being with Tristan for the rest of my life, and I hope nothing ever changes with that. But I also feel like, amicably, if anything were not to work out, ideally we would just see things as being 50-50, and this is the only thing that we have shared as a married couple. There's not like businesses involved, not multiple assets or other properties. It's just this home, and I think maybe that's what I rationalize as, but I'll never knock it. I think for me, I just was thinking from a very just conservative, traditional point of view of like, I don't think we need it. And I know that that's not a very popular opinion. And it's interesting. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that though.
On getting a prenup.
Yep.
There's who does it? I think it's Ronaldo, soccer player,
Yeah,
who has.
We're talking about millions and millions of dollars difference here, but okay. Sure. Yeah.
But he nothing essentially is given to. I don't know how it works. There's a system, right?
Yep.
But essentially, his mother gets his assets, and so when he gets married, the wife technically has nothing with.
Okay.
Not nothing, but this is kind of what I understand about how it worked. And that's why when players try to, or when the wives try to sue this celebrity or whatever, they don't have much to the name because it's kind of given to the mom.
Got it.
Yeah. So I thought that was smart. I don't know how legal it is or the legalities of it work, but that's a smart way of doing things if you're in that
I think unfortunately your tax bracket really dictates how you approach things, right?
Right.
Yeah, and not to say that it's not important for everybody to kind of just have an understanding whether you go that route or not. Like, I think it's important to have some kind of clear understanding, or if you really want to look at it, just black and white, like some type of workflow of like, if this happens, then this, right? Whatever that be, I think you got to have that discussion early on.
Right. And finances, my mom told me this, and she, as a young, in my early 20s, I would always be like, yeah, whatever, mom. But this is what she said to me. It's love jumps out the window when there's no food on the table.
Hey.
I was like, wow, shots out to you now.
That's pretty good.
But now I'm coming to realization that that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. And what you were saying earlier was that the number one reason for divorce is just finances, right?
Yep.
And I'm realizing that now, and how important money is, because as a young emo, all you do is feel like, no, love's gonna win or whatever, right? That's not the reality of it, right? And then so my mom's so good with finances, and I wish I had a part of that DNA in. But she's very frugal, but at the same time, that doesn't what I've learned from my mom is that you can be frugal, but you can also get the things that you want. You just have to buy at the right times. Okay. And so one of her things is, I don't know, I'm going to sidetrack, but one of their things is, if she really likes something from Macy's, she'll wait for it. Like, she sees something, wait for a week, goes by, check to see the price. Oh, it went down. Okay. And still she won't get it. And so she'll come back another week, check to see if it's in the sale rack. Went down again. Then she'll pick it up.
Shout out to mom.
Shout out to mom, man. I wish I had that versus getting to debt with with my credit cards.
Yeah.
But man, finances is kind of yeah, it's a big aspect of relationships because when does the weight of being in debt what do you call it, outdo, or how long can love hold up the weight of debt
Yeah.
is my question.
Sure,
And for
sure.
some that might be forever, and
Yep.
for others it might
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
might break.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. I'm gonna grab another beer. You want one?
I'm still working on mine,
Okay.
bro. Yeah. Time out.
One. Okay. So I think what's really cool is you bringing up your mom. Like, how do you think your family, growing up, how do you think your parents' relationship influenced your current relationship?
Current relationship.
Yeah.
Man, I've been blessed. I say this all the time. I've been blessed with like, I don't want to say the best because that's biased, but they're the best parents or best examples that I could have gotten.
Yeah.
That I've been that I could have been blessed with. And I say that with 100% conviction because the way that they communicate with each other, not so much recently, because I think just by old age they just kind of bicker a little bit more. But in my formative years, they've been such an anchor on how my relationship with Joss is now. Just because of the way that my dad mostly, because I can relate to him because we're just two males, right? Men.
Right.
And I definitely lean towards more of how his style of relationship.
Sure.
Not managing his relationship style, I guess.
Okay.
How he makes it work with my mom, and there's just a lot of patience, and I think it's just how he is as a person too.
Sure.
Because he's just very patient and very gentle in a sense, and I think that's how I've formed myself after all of the self-searching or influences outside of my parents.
Okay.
And I think one of his, just the patience that he has, I think is one of the things that I've learned from him. And another one is, we were in the car once, Joe, and we're just talking, dad to son, and he goes, I think we were talking about my mom as well, but
Sure.
he goes, anak is a child, or in Tagalog,
Okay.
kind of sentimental thing. So he goes, anak, when your mom talks, just let her talk. Don't respond. Just let her talk. Mm-hmm. And I took that with me, it's just been such a good advice for my family, because my mom sometimes talks a lot and just kind of needs to get out her opinion, good opinion.
Sure.
I mean, good advice and opinion, right? But sometimes she just kind of goes on and on with just different random things, and her experience with whatever we're talking about. But that kind of taught me patience, because sometimes with my siblings, they'll have to talk back or whatever,
okay.
right?
Gotcha.
And in their younger days, yeah. But when he told me that kind of grew along with me, or just became part of my identity in terms of like being patient with people, and
For sure.
and really learning how to listen. And that's one of the things that I got from him, because now even with relationships prior to Joss, listening and just being attentive, and just being aware of what they're saying and being present is a big thing. And I've seen that with my dad. Their relationship was always good, bro.
Okay, that's good.
There was one time in my early or I think I was probably like 8 or 9. They were having an argument, and this was the only time that I've seen them like kind of raise their voice at each other.
And then you're like, my parents are getting a divorce.
Yo, my dad just walked out.
Yeah.
He walked out but then now in hindsight, my friend was sleeping over at the time. My friend and I were looking at each other like, whoa, like what's going on? But at that time,
is
I was
he coming back?
No. What's funny is hours passed, and it was like late night. My dad comes home.
Yep.
And then he talks to my mom, and they're they make up or whatever and they're fine. But as an 8-year-old or 9 whatever year old it was, I was like, shucks, I don't. That didn't feel good.
Yep.
That didn't feel good. And that was the only time that I've ever seen like a bad argument.
Yeah.
And it was so embedded in my mind. Like I still remember these things in that day. But yeah, that was you know what? I'm gonna ask him today, see if he remembers it and be like, yo, what happened?
What did you say?
Yeah, what did you say? But now that I'm in my now that I'm older and I realize how so much I am alike my dad, or how much I'm alike with my dad, or how so similar we are. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, he had the right to stop. That's in my head, bro. But I gotta ask him. But knowing how I'm so similar to my dad, he probably had a good reason.
Oh, there you go.
But I'm gonna ask him today and be like, "Hey, Dad, do you remember this time?" Or ask my mom. But yeah, I'm gonna ask him today. But yeah, that's kind of that translated well with my relationship with
That
Josh.
makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes sense completely.
Was there things in your parents that you seen that translated or carried over?
Yeah, interesting, similar, right? So both my parents, they're still together. I'm really lucky and fortunate. I think my sister and I were raised in a very loving household. Both of my parents are educators, so just we were blessed in the sense that we spent so much time with them. We shared the same holidays, the time out, like winter break, spring break, summer, all of that stuff we were able to spend with my parents. So I think just growing up, we were just a very tight-knit unit that just continues to this day. Communication was always very big. It was always encouraged, like we were never taught to not express how we felt about things. And I think that was something was really good. My mom's very outspoken. My dad sounds similar to your dad. People will meet my dad and be like, oh, he's so chill. He's such a reserved guy and he doesn't say a lot and he's always smiling and happy and he chuckles a lot and he's just a cool guy. And I think that at times may seem like he's passive, but he's not, like I think my dad's a very strong individual and I think a lot of things don't rattle him. And that's why he's able to just have that demeanor. Yeah. So in some sense, I think I've inherited both traits. Like, from my dad's standpoint, like I think I try to be even kiltered about a lot of things. I try to approach things that way. But on my mom's end, because she's outspoken and emotional, I've also inherited that. And I think that's healthy because that's allowed me growing up and as an adult to be able to express myself clearer. Like, hey, that ain't cool. I'm not okay with this. I need to know more about that. Yeah. Can you tell me why you said that or why you did that? And that's something that was always encouraged. And that's something that my mom always did with my dad, where they just had this open form of communication. Going into my marriage, it's really interesting because my wife reminds me of my mother in a lot of ways, where super passionate and emotional about things. And not emotional for the sake of, well, sometimes she is, but for the most part, I think she's just because she's such a passionate person. When she gets excited about something, when she's upset about something, she will let you know it. And I think for me, what's been good is just seeing how my parents communicated. Again, allowing my wife to just be able to tell me how she's feeling. But on the same standpoint, making sure that I'm able to do the same. I think it's very easy to just listen to somebody, but unless you have the opportunity to express yourself as well, it's not going to work, right? Where you got to kind of have this agreement where like, okay, you go and then I go, or vice versa, right? And I think that's really worked out. Growing up, it's so funny that you mentioned the one argument that stands out. Like I had that exact same moment with my parents, and I remember it clearly because, same thing, my dad left and like, come to find out what felt like hours was probably just like 30 minutes. Honestly, he went to the garbage dump. I remember asking him like, where'd you go? He's like, oh, I had to take the On the
That's
Big Island,
hilarious,
on the Big Island, you got to take your own trash to the dump. So he just went to the dump and came back, and I was just like, man, Dad's never coming back. Me and my sister were just crying. We were like, this is it. Gotta live with Mom now.
Yeah.
But and it's funny because same thing. They came back, they talked, and then I remember my sister and I were inconsolable. I must have been 7, or I must have been maybe like 7 or 8, and my sister was really young. And
So when we reach 7 or 8, then Josh and I are probably gonna have a big
maybe I don't know, because it's right around that time where
Yeah.
it just every action and word just holds so much weight at that age. Like where you really are afraid, like this is it, like if you've never seen your parents argue and you see a blowout, you
It's
just think
different.
like it's done, like oh my
Yeah.
God, this is it, now I don't have a
Right.
dad, and that's how it felt
For sure.
So
Yeah.
I remember them coming into the room and just saying like, Mom and Dad had an argument and we're fine, we're good, like it happens. And then they took us to the beach, and I swear to God, that's the last time I ever saw them argue. And I mean, like that's crazy.
That's
to think about it, right?
crazy. Yeah.
I mean, that's, I don't want to date myself, but that's almost 40 years ago. And I'm like, I can't imagine. I'm sure they've had multiple arguments since then. We never saw it after that point.
Is Mom and Dad willing to come on the pod?
Oh shoot! My mom would be for sure.
That'd be nuts.
It'd be a 4-hour pod. Dad, I don't know about Dad. He would just be silent. You would
Yeah,
just hear him chuckle every once in a while. That he wouldn't say anything, but yeah, no, I mean, I think
that's
what's interesting is again, like, and it wasn't that they were hiding anything, but I think they just had this system where, again, I talked about how Tristan and I try to avoid the blowouts by really just addressing it before it happens.
Yeah.
We can both get animated, and that's just human nature.
Sure.
You're gonna get emotional about things, and it'll happen. And I'm sure that happened with my parents, but they were able to kind of address it before it hit us, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
to
that's
have the foresight, bro.
Yeah.
To even sit down and be like, "Hey, Mom and Dad," that's
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, no,
That's so good.
I should ask my sister if she remembers that, because literally that was the one thing that stands out, and I cannot recall ever since then them having an argument where I witnessed and me ever worrying that the relationship wasn't good, the marriage wasn't good.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I think that the reality of it is when you have children, of course, it adds a layer of complexity to things. But I think even though my parents had my sister and I, more so than love, they've always had a respect for each other. And I think love is just such an idealistic thing that I truly believe is the most important. But you also have to respect your partner, because
Yeah.
if you don't, you can love them as much as you want, but if you don't respect them, you're gonna mistreat them at some point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you think you can just get away with treating them or saying whatever you want and not realizing how it's going to impact them, that's going to be a red flag at some point, right?
That's so good, bro. Because
Yeah.
I've never thought about. I think because it might just be so natural to us, like it's a given. But then if you make it aware, like, oh, if for people that, or for some couples that might have a hard time, communicating, that aspect, I think that would be so helpful to me if, just know. I mean, it is helpful to be aware of just respecting my partner, Joss. But it's hard because you're not really aware of that while things are heated. Yeah.
Right.
But that's such a good practical way of tackling heated arguments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. If no matter how mad you get at somebody, how frustrated you get at somebody, if you respect that person, you're gonna number one, hear them out, and you're gonna also try to empathize and from there, again, try to get to a solution point, right? Where, if this is how you feel and this is how I feel, and even if we're at an impasse and we're not seeing eye to eye, if we respect each other, we're going to try to get past this somehow. So, whoever wants to make the first move, we're going to go ahead and, again, we got to get back on the same page. I think that's the most important thing. Yeah. So,
that's gonna wrap it up.
Yeah.
But this isn't gonna be the last time that we're talking about spouses, because there's a whole lot of things we got to talk about.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. But again, guys, thanks for listening. You know, this is we're gonna rename this to the Emotional Boys Podcast. I think that's a little bit more fitting. Yeah, Ray and I are just a bunch of emotional dudes, just talking about our feelings, as my wife calls it, my therapy session with my friend Ray here. So, yeah, thank you for listening, though.
Right on, guys. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Thanks for hanging in.
Peace.